Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this session for cultural diversity and inclusion. Together is better. Before we start, I would like to thank TDRA for the opportunity to deliver this fantastic session for you all. I hope that you get great value from it, and I am positive that we're all going to come away learning something new. So before we get started into the program, just a very quick introduction on who I am and how I can add value to your learning experience over the next 45 minutes to 50 minutes. So my name is Danos Parpotter, and from this picture, it's an indication that I love to laugh, I love to enjoy life, and I love to travel. This picture was taken during my ski trip in Georgia, but I love to travel, and obviously for all of the reasons that we don't need to mention with COVID, it's been a difficult couple of years without being able to travel, but inshallah we'll be able to travel again very soon without the inconvenience of multiple tests. Originally, I'm from London, but let's just have a couple of guesses. What I would like you to do, and please forgive me because I'm going to use my YouTube chat to see where do you think I'm from originally. This chat is all about culture, so let's get some guesses for those of you that are in the room. Who can guess where I'm from? Yes, I was born in London, but culturally that is not where I'm from. Who can have a guess? And please use the YouTube chat as our chat screen. You're probably thinking, he doesn't look English. You are right. My parents are from somewhere else. I'll give you a clue. It's close to Italy, but not quite Italy. Originally I was born in the UK, thank you so much, but my parents are from somewhere else. So culturally, I am somewhere else. I am very close to Italy. Oh, South America, Mohammed, I wish I was from South America. It's an exciting place to be. No, I'm not from South America. I am very close to Italy in Europe. It begins with a G. I'm going to put a big capital letter G on the chat. Yes, Mohammed, well done. I am originally from Greece, actually a very small island called Cyprus, which is a Greek island. I have been in the UAE for the last 6 years, and I traveled from the UK with my wonderful wife. And during my time in the UAE, we've added another member to the team. So Team Parpotter has gained another football player, and it is in the shape of my wonderful daughter, Adriana, who you can see in front of you there. Now, Adriana, she has many wooden toys in front of you, as you can see on this picture. She likes to make toys from wooden spoons and forks because she has gained her inspiration from Toy Story 4. If those of you have seen Toy Story 4, you would know that there's a small character called Forky, and Forky is in this picture here. Now, having a daughter is absolutely amazing for me because I'm going to share with you one of my favorite pastimes, and that is watching Disney. I love Disney animation and Disney cartoons. So naturally now Adriana is at the age where she keeps telling me, Daddy, I want to watch Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast. Excellent. Really, it's just for my benefit and not my daughter's. So that's a little bit about me, but most importantly, what I really love to do outside of my personal life is learning and development. So you walking away from this session after an hour of spending it with me because I value your time, my main purpose and my mission is to give you guys value, to show you something or to teach you something that you potentially didn't know before you came into this room and you joined me on this virtual platform. So I'm confident you're in good hands, and enjoy the show. Okay, so what are we going to accomplish by the end of our hour? So we're going to have a clear definition of what culture is, what diversity is, and what inclusion is. Okay, all three of them go hand in hand. There's not one which is more important than the other. All three of them are extremely important. Then, number two, we're going to identify and discuss the different elements of culture. So, why does the Middle East behave differently from the European culture? We're going to discuss all of that. The most important thing I want you to take away from today is there's no right or wrong culture. Culture is culture. However, it's the awareness of the different cultures which will give us the edge when it comes to talking business and building relationships with others. So, understanding culture is very important, but I don't want you to think that there's one culture better than the other. Okay? Culture is just culture. Finally, number three, we're actually going to show you techniques and tips on how to how to adapt to different cultures. Now, I can only speak from experience because I grew up in a part of London which was an Indian dominated culture. So, the area that I lived in, about 90% of all of my friends, neighbors, they were all Indian. However, they were born in the UK. So, it wasn't until I actually physically left the UK and came to Dubai that I realized, wow, there's so many different cultures and cultures all behave very, very differently. And this is what we're going to discuss. And I made it my mission to really study culture and understand culture so I can build more effective relationships in both business and personal life. What is the contents? What is the structure of the course? Well, firstly, we're going to define what is culture. We're going to talk about what culture is. Then we're going to talk about the importance of a diverse and inclusive culture in both workspace and personal life. Then we're going to dive into the elements of culture. What are all of the facets, the components that make up culture? And then finally, we're going to look at how to adapt to different business cultures. Okay, so strap on, get your seatbelt ready because we're in for an interesting ride. Now, the way I've actually done this course is I'm going to share with you my own personal experiences dealing with different cultures as well. So it's almost like the diary of Danos Parpota explained to you in a training session. Okay, so it's going to be really interesting and fun. Before that, let's open up the floor to you wonderful people. What is culture? If you can define culture, or if you can tell me some of the components that make up culture, what is it? Use the public chat in YouTube channel and let me know what culture is. Give me some examples. I'll give you a couple of minutes to come up with some answers. When you're thinking about culture, think of some of the components that make your culture. Fantastic, Nadine. Thank you for that. Yes, definitely. It's the way people live. And the way people live will have different variances depending on what part of the world you come from. Absolutely. You know, I can speak from my experience growing up in the first few years of my life in Greece. I was very, very much a person of water. I loved the beach. And it's for one of the main reasons why I left the UK to come to Dubai as well, because that's part of how we were brought up right along the beach. Nadine's also mentioned different perspective of life. Absolutely. So your lens in which you see the world is very, very different. Group of people who share language, traditions, and so on. That is excellent answer, Farah. Thank you so much. It's either, if it's not Farah, I think it's Farah. So please, please, please correct me if I'm wrong. I think the emphasis is on the Farah, but please, please correct me if I'm wrong. The way people dress, absolutely. The way people dress is also very, very different. Okay. Norms and etiquette at different parts of the world. I love that. That's really good. So different cultures might find other behaviors from other cultures as very, very offensive. I'll give you a very quick explanation. If you do this to stop in the UK, and if you do that to someone who's Greek, you are going to offend them. It's one of the most offensive things you can say to a Greek person when you actually put their hand up to that. So that's a cultural etiquette which is very, very different from one culture to the next. Farah, I've got it correct. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that confirmation. Guys, you've given me some excellent answers. So let's take a deep dive into this now. First of all, culture is made up of different traditions. It's a way of living. Very good. I think Nadine actually mentioned that. It's a set of predictable behaviors. Now, this one's really interesting because what happens is we start to predict how a culture will act. And that is the first building block of what is known as a stereotype. Okay. Now, human beings stereotype a lot. And the reason is because we find it easier to process things when we categorize people in groups. However, that could also lead us to make judgments which are not entirely true. Okay? So we just got to be careful of that, and we'll discuss that later on. It's a set of values handed down through generations. I love this one-liner because I can certainly say, growing up in a UK environment, values-wise and culturally, I'm very much attuned to my Greek heritage. So a lot of my values have come from my mother and my father, who are first-generation Greeks. So often values is not where you're born, but how they are instilled from your parents. Secondly, language. Different cultures have different language, of course. Food, the variation of food and how we eat food is very, very different. Now, thankfully, growing up in a Greek household, because I'm from Cyprus, which is a Greek island, but the lineage is actually from the Middle East. So we have kibbeh, we have lots of similarities in our food. And actually, the way the Cypriots eat is around a table with all of the food in the middle, and we're all sharing. Whereas if you go to the UK, they prefer the a la carte system. What's mine is mine. Don't touch my chips or my fries. If you want one of my fries, I will order you another plate. So it's really interesting the way we cook food and the way we share food. Finally, religion is very, very different from one culture to another. The belief system that we have is extremely different as well. So culture is made up of lots and lots of smaller facets, as you can see. However, Gert Hofstede, who is probably the real avatar of understanding culture, this is what he says, and this is his true definition. And if you don't have this, take a picture of it. The collective programming. So culture is the collective programming of the mind that distinguishes the members of one group or category of people from others. So now we're thinking about tribalism. Yeah. When you're part of a tribe, what is a tribe? Well, a tribe is a community where people have a common set of values and beliefs. And when you are integrated into that culture, you feel like you belong. Okay. So let me give you an example. Farah, I'm going to use you as an example because you're the last person to make a comment. Farah, using the chat, please let me know where you were born. What is your culture? Where are you from? Because I'm going to use you as an example. Actually, whilst Farah is typing that, why don't we get a little bit of a potpourri? Let's get all of the cultures into the chat. Just let me know which culture you belong to. Okay, so Farah's from Al Quwain. Very nice. They've got a wonderful beach there, which I went on the weekend. It was fantastic. Okay, so Farah, you are from the UAE, which is great. Now, I'm going to use you as an example. Okay, I'm going to take you out of Al Quwain just for a day, and I'm going to put you in the middle of Glasgow in Scotland. Okay, so imagine this. All right, I've taken you outside of the UAE. I've put you in the middle of Scotland. Nobody's speaking Arabic. Everybody's really pale skinned, red hair. There's lots of people that you don't understand the language. It's safe to say that the first day that you land in Scotland, is it correct, true or false, that you might feel slightly isolated, you might feel slightly intimidated by the environment? Give me a yes or give me a no. Imagine me taking you out of your home country, putting you in the middle of Scotland. And Scottish people, their accent is very difficult. It's not like mine to understand. Is it safe to say that you might feel a little bit um, anxious, uncomfortable? Give me a yes. Yeah, you'll feel like an alien. That's exactly. You'll feel like an alien because you are in a culture where you have no similar values and beliefs, no similar language, most likely not a similar religion. Yeah, most of Scottish people either be Catholic or Protestant. So you will feel like an alien. Now, let's imagine that feeling now. You have that feeling, and 3 hours later, after landing in Glasgow airport, you feel very hungry. So you go to the local Scottish restaurant and you sit down. You ask for a table for one. The waitress takes you to the table. Now you hear lots of Scottish people talking in the background. It's safe to say you'll still feel like an alien. Now, I'm going to take you on a journey. In fact, Farah's actually saying, I might cry. Okay, imagine that feeling now. You're about to cry because you feel like an alien. And the right ear, the corner of your ear, you can hear two people talking Arabic. And immediately you look around and they're speaking exactly the same dialect as you. You get up from your table and you go over to them and you say, where are you from? And that person says, I'm from Dubai, I'm from Abu Dhabi, I'm from Al Quwain. Now, are you still going to feel like an alien or are you going to feel more comfortable? Give me a yes or a no. If you're going to feel more comfortable, put a yes into the chat. I can predict what you're going to say. Yeah, you will go there and you'll say salam, salam alaikum. Absolutely. Because you've identified people with similar values and beliefs as your own, immediately you stop feeling like an alien and you feel part of a belonging, part of a tribe. And this is what culture is. It's a collective programming of the mind that distinguishes the members of one group or category from others. That's why culture is so important. Culture helps us belong. Just like you will belong part of that tribe of the two Arab speaking individuals in the Scottish restaurant, we also like to belong by some of the things that we buy. For example, Apple. They are so good at marketing their products. Whenever you buy the brand new Apple MacBook Air or MacBook Pro, you never buy a case for it, right? Because you want that glowing Apple logo when you open your laptop so you can show everybody else that you are part of the Apple tribe. Exactly the same thing with your national flag, for example. If it's a national flag, it gives you a sense of belonging. That's why when you watch the World Cup, you see all of the athletes passionately singing about their country because it's part of their identity. It's very important. Maybe the car you drive. I used to work for BMW, so I'm very passionate about the brand. But a lot of BMW drivers, when they've had one, they will have another BMW. Same with Mercedes Benz, same with Toyota. You are passionate about the brand that you represent. Also, this is taken from Moana. I told you I'm a huge Disney fan. A lot of people get tattoos on their body as part of a tribe. This is what is known as a tribal tattoo. So the Maoris used to get their whole body tattooed to show that they belong to a part of a tribe, a sense of belonging. So culture and belonging is extremely important. So let's dive into culture and why it's important. Before that, let's talk about diversity and inclusion, okay? Now, I want you to come up with a definition for what diversity and inclusion is, okay? So we now know what culture is. Culture is a collective group of people with similar values and beliefs. But what is diversity and inclusion? And this is very, very important, by the way, for your business, that you grow and maintain a diverse and inclusive work culture. So, for a couple of minutes, just think about a definition on what you think diversity is and what inclusion is. And I tell you what, I'm going to give a prize. I'm going to give a prize to the person that gets the answer correct. And the prize is one of the best books, ebooks on culture. It's called the Culture Map. I'm going to send that to my team at the academy and they will forward it on to you. So whoever can give me the correct definition of diversity and inclusion will win an ebook. Let's go. Let's get some competition going. So what do you think diversity is and what do you think inclusion is? I'm going to give you some interesting statistics in a moment. Okay, so Nadine, differences in people's cultures. Excellent, excellent, excellent. That's a good answer. Let's see if anyone else has anything to add. Inclusion in is living together. I like that. You're thinking more from a personal perspective, and you're absolutely right. So, Mohammed, you have written diversity is a pool of talents in a given organization. Inclusion is feel that we are a team serving a set of goals. Mohammed, you know what? I love your definition there. I love it. I'm going to say that is a B plus if you had to grade it, which is still a pass. Let's say we have a basket full of different fruits. Diversity is the different fruits, and inclusion is they're all in the fruit basket. Farah, I am a big believer in giving analogies. I train with analogies, and I'm going to take that analogy and I'm going to use it moving forward. So I'm going to pay you royalties. So I am actually going to give you and Mohammed a pass mark. Farah, that is an A plus in my book. Awi, the best definition I heard was diversity is being invited to the party. Inclusion is being asked to dance. Oh, I love that. Awi, you are on my wavelength, my friend. So I'm going to give the gift to Mohammed, Farah, and Awi. You all get it. Well done. I really love those analogies. Let's have a look. Diversity is understanding and acceptance of different cultures within an organization. So that's kind of like being invited to the party. It's an acceptance of different cultures. However, inclusion is the involvement of these cultures in decision making. This is why it's so important for organizations to understand why diversity and inclusion is important. Having one without the other is not enough. So many organizations have a diverse workforce, but actually, when it comes to making decisions, they don't include these different cultures in the decision making. And that is very detrimental to the business culture. Because, as you can see from the last point, it's important to hire people from all backgrounds, as everyone has different skills that they can provide and help to enhance a business. By having an inclusive and diverse environment, this allows more wider perspectives to be integrated when brainstorming, problem solving, and developing new ideas in business. Guys, I'm going to make sure I send you that ebook. I will send it to the team and they can distribute it to you accordingly afterwards. Well done. So now we know what culture is. Culture is a group of individuals with similar set of values and beliefs. Diversity is the acceptance and understanding of different cultures within an organization. And inclusion is involving them in the decision making. I love it. Okay? So here's some useful statistics for you. Organizations that celebrate diversity and inclusion are 19% more profitable than organizations that do not have a diverse and inclusive work culture. And there's no surprise, Apple, Google, LinkedIn, these are amongst some of the most profitable businesses at the moment, and they rank one of the highest in terms of diversity and inclusion. What's also interesting, Emirates Airlines is a company who I used to work for, and they have, I believe, after these organizations and after the United Nations, some of the most diverse workforce in the world. And of course, it goes hand in hand with their levels of profitability. Because the more diverse a culture is, the more people can relate to the people working there. And also, we take in different frameworks of thinking in decision making. And companies that are inclusive make 89% better decisions than companies that are not. So it's very, very important that we celebrate these differences. Okay, so this is a this is a section where we're going to touch a bit of a nerve. Because remember, with culture, there's a group of individuals with similar set of values and beliefs. Now, what I would like to do is invite some cultural stereotypes that we all have in the world. Some of the stereotypes that are not true, but we have them because of media coverage, news coverage, and sometimes fake news. Let's face it. So I want you to use this is with no judgment here, guys. Okay, what we're doing is we're exploring some of the stereotypes that we have. Now, I'm going to lead this, and I'm going to use the chat, and I'm going to write that English culture like to drink. This is a cultural stereotype that many people have, rightly or wrongly. There's nothing, we're not talking about whether it's right or wrong. We're talking about stereotypes. So the English culture like to drink. Italians, my grandfather is Italian. So I'm going to write this here. Like to talk and eat. Oh, I spelt it wrong there. Okay, eat. Okay, we like eating pasta. So that's another stereotype. So why don't we use this chat and let's just come up with a couple more stereotypes. Use the chat here because I'm going to show you where these stereotypes actually come from. And this is going to be a real great learning experience. Maybe give me some stereotypes of your own culture. And I'm only laughing with Mohammed's comment. Arabs are not committed to time. Yes. And I can only say this because I'm Greek, I'm from the Mediterranean, and we always have the mañana, mañana mentality. Yeah, tomorrow, tomorrow. And Arabs are quite similar, actually. The Arabic culture and the Mediterranean culture are very, very close. Yes, they are not that committed to time, even though you guys joined on time today. So, yeah, that also is a stereotype. Give me some others. I'll give you another one. Filipinos are very service oriented or orientated. So they're very good in delivering outstanding customer service. Any others? I think some of you are being safe, and it's nice. And this is not to offend anyone. This is just, I think, challenging some of the dogma that we have surrounding different cultures. And these are answers which were given by previous training sessions as well. One more? Okay, whilst you're still writing in the chat, let's identify and dig into these stereotypes and where they actually come from. So, we're going to take a deep dive into the elements of culture. What are all the different components that make culture what it is? Let's have a look. There are four main elements of culture. Okay? Communication. The way we communicate between cultures is very different. The way we give feedback between different cultures, the way we view power in different cultures, and the way we build trust with different cultures. And I'm going to give you several of my experiences and relate that to the book that I'm going to gift Farah, Mohammed, and Alwi, called The Culture Map. And it's an excellent book. It talks to you about how to do business with different cultures. It's really, really good. So the first one we're going to look at is communication. Okay, so let's break this down. Cultures are either high context communicators or low context communicators. So what do I mean by that? Okay, so I'm born and raised in the UK. I'm a classic example of a low context communicator. And Farah, who was raised in Al Quwain, there's a very high chance that she will be a high context communicator. So straight away, we have a very, very different communication pattern. Okay, now I'm going to explain what that means now. But if you can see the phrase just above it, reading between the lines, this is a phrase which is made very famous by the Japanese culture. The Japanese culture believe, and by the way, the Japanese are one of the highest context communicators that exist. They are very high context. And they believe that you should be able to read between the lines. So I'm going to ask you a question. If a Japanese person comes to your house and you ask them, "Are you hungry?" what is their answer going to be? Yes or no? Give me the answer in the chat. If you ask a Japanese person at home, "Are you hungry?" what is their answer? Farah, you're actually wrong. The Japanese, even if they are starving, if they are about to die from hunger, the Japanese will say, "I'm not hungry." Because the Japanese believe that you should always read between the lines. So actually, Farah, the Japanese are very, very similar to your culture, where you would never ask someone, "Are you hungry?" Farah, I can guarantee you, you or your family would actually just say, "Bring the food out," without even asking. Because in high context cultures, we are designed to communicate less and more of the action. We are designed better to read body language. Okay? So the Japanese will never ever say, "I am hungry." You have to bring food out to them without asking. Otherwise, they will not eat. They are a high context communication culture. I'm going to explain. Before I get into it, let me explain this with a story. Okay, so this is during my experience. Before, when I was a freelance trainer, I actually took a trip to India to train a wonderful group of key account managers. And the training took place in New Delhi. Okay, I'm not sure if any of you have been to New Delhi. Just give me a thumbs up or a yes. It's a crazy city, so busy. And the time was about 4:30 p.m. and I was supposed to train in the Taj in New Delhi. It's a wonderful hotel, but my hotel was about 6, 7 kilometers away from the Taj, right in the center of the city. Now, remember, I grew up with the Indian culture, so I was so excited to be there. So I dropped my bags into the room. The time was about 4:30, and I was really, really hungry. So I walked to reception, and I met this wonderful gentleman that you see before yourselves on the screen. His name is Bhaskar. He was the concierge, and I went up to him and I said, "Good morning, sir." And he said, "Good morning, sir. How can I help? My name is Bhaskar." And I said, "Bhaskar, I am really, really hungry. Good afternoon, I should say, not good morning." I said, "I'm really hungry. Please, can you tell me where the locals eat? I want the authentic Indian cuisine." Bhaskar smiled at me. He said, "Very good, sir. I will show you one of the best restaurants in town. It's called the Regency Restaurant." I said, "Brilliant." I said, "Is it near? Is it close?" And he said, "Yes, it is, sir. As soon as you come out of the hotel, turn left. There's a sign. You can't miss it." I thought, amazing, amazing. I said, "Thank you, Bhaskar." So I walked outside of the hotel. I turned left, looking for what I thought would be Regency, and I see this picture. I see this scene in front of me. I'm looking for Regency. I can't find Regency anywhere. As you can see, New Delhi is a very busy city. There's people riding a rickshaw. There's chickens on the street. It's an attack on the senses of color and smells of wonderful cuisines, but I'm looking for Regency and I can't find it. So I'm beginning to think to myself, maybe I didn't hear this correctly. So I turned back and I went back into the hotel. Bhaskar saw me and he looked a bit confused. He said, "You didn't find it?" I said, "No, Bhaskar. You said outside the hotel, turn left. I can't see it." He said, "Oh, I'm sorry, sir." He said, "Cross the road. Continue walking, maybe 1 or 2 minutes. It's on the left-hand side. You'll see a sign. You can't miss it." And then I thought to myself, cross the road. Okay, so then I crossed the road. I walked for what was 1 or 2 minutes. I couldn't see Regency. I thought to myself, maybe it's a little bit further on. I continued to walk for what was 10, 11 minutes. I still couldn't see the Regency. I got to a fork in the road. One was left and one was kind of left, but not as left. So I took the immediate left. I continued walking and I ended up in an alleyway. Lots of people selling clothing, saris, cosmetics, and textiles. I said, "Oh my God, I'm lost." So now I'm getting frustrated. People trying to sell me textiles when really I was hungry. Now I started thinking to myself, do I just go to the nearest restaurant or do I go back? Because he recommended it, so I really wanted to try it. So I walked back 15 minutes. I went back to the hotel. Bhaskar sees me. Now he's scratching his head. I can tell, I know from his face, he's thinking, I'm a bit stupid. So I said, "Bhaskar, I couldn't see it." He said, "So I will take you, sir." So he said, "I finish my shift in 10 minutes. Please wait for me." So he finished his shift. We walk for 10 minutes. We get to the fork in the road. We take the other left. We walk under a bridge. We get to a yellow building which said Bank of India. We turn left. We walk 150 meters. And there, on the second floor of a tiny building, is a small sign saying Gold Regency. And I'm looking at this sign. And then he touches me on my shoulder and he says, "You see, I told you it was easy. Enjoy your meal, sir." And he walks back. Now I'm thinking to myself, why did he not tell me, walk until you see a fork in the road, take the right-hand fork, walk until you see a yellow building, which is Bank of India, turn left, walk 150 meters, and you will see a red and gold sign. I was so confused. I was also frustrated. Now, here's the difference. Let me show you the culture map for communication. If you are from United States of America, Australia, UK, Germany, Netherlands, Finland, we are all low context communicators. We rely on precise and accurate detail to make sense to us. Okay? If you are from the Middle East, from the Mediterranean, from Singapore, Russia, India, Iran, Kenya, Saudi Arabia, you can see the UAE flag there as well. You are all high context communicators. Now, what does that mean? It means you don't give all of the information because you expect the other person to figure it out. If you're from the Philippines, keep walking. You're more high context. You're not even on the map. So this is the difference. If you are a high context communicator, i.e., if you are from any of the Arabic cultures, from the Indian cultures, from the Far East, sometimes when you're communicating to a European, they are going to ask you so many questions, and you're going to be really frustrated with them because you're thinking, God, man, is this guy stupid? Does he not get it? That's because we rely on accuracy of information. Now, flip to the Europeans. When we're communicating to an Arabic speaking culture or Mediterranean culture, especially in English, we are not getting enough information for us to fully understand. So we might see high context communicators as being quite vague. And the simple reason is this: the older the language, the more high context it is. So I'll give you an example. If you read the New Testament in the Bible, if you read the Quran, a lot of the messaging is implied, it's high context, it's designed to get you to think about the real meaning of the message. Whereas the newer languages, the British language, the English language as we know it, we have many, many words which mean different things. Okay? I'll give you an example. If you ask somebody, if an English person asks somebody, oh, let me rephrase that. The easiest way to freak out an English person when they ask you, will something be ready, is when a high context culture says, inshallah. Now, I appreciate the word inshallah. We use it in the Greek culture as well, and I understand the importance of it. But the word inshallah obviously means God willing. Now, to someone from Europe who is a low context communicator, that is not enough security for them to know whether something will be delivered in time. So that's a classic case of low context to high context. And this is something which is really interesting. Again, there's no right or wrong culture. There's just differences in culture. Does that make sense? So think about the experiences that you have with the people that you've worked with different cultures, and it will really, really begin to make sense. Next one, feedback. So we're talking about direct versus indirect feedback. Okay, so if you are from Europe, you will be very direct with your feedback. If you don't like something, you tell it to their face. In the Arabic world, the Middle Eastern world, and the Far Eastern world, we don't like direct confrontation. We prefer to handle conflict one-on-one in a separate room. So let me explain that with a story. I want to introduce you to Jens. Jens was a sales manager during my time working for BMW. He was a regional sales manager. He covered Germany and the United States of America. And one day we were having a management meeting with all of the managers, and he was speaking about how he offended someone from the United States of America. So he used to have a sales call with a sales manager called Sarah, who used to work in New York and would handle the sales office in New York. So Jens would have a conference call on the telephone when Sarah was taking her children to school. And during one conference call, her children were in the back seat of the car making some noise. And Jens said to Sarah, next time, Sarah, please call me when your kids are not in the car because they're extremely frustrating. Obviously, this came across very rude, and I can assume that it's coming across very rude to a lot of you in the room who are listening to this now, because Jens is from Germany. He's very used to direct feedback. Sarah's from the United States of America. She's used to indirect feedback. I'm from Greece and I'm used to indirect feedback. So Jens got into a lot of trouble. Sarah filed a complaint. Jens was basically saying, I'm just being brutally honest. I don't know why people get so upset. In Germany, if we have a problem with someone, we tell it to their face. And it wasn't until I saw the culture map that this all made sense. Have a look at this. If you are from the cultures highlighted in a red box, Russia, Israel, Germany, Denmark, Norway, France, Italy, Australia, Spain. You are a direct negative feedback culture, which basically means if you don't like something, you are very, very comfortable saying it to that person and saying, I don't want to be part of this. This isn't working for me. We're very comfortable. Now, what's interesting is US and UK, they are in the middle. So they're in the middle. But when you look at Germany, so if you remember what I said about Germany, Germany communicating to the US, it's a relative scale. So Germany are more direct than the US and the UK. However, I'm from the UK, so if I'm talking to somebody from Egypt or Saudi Arabia or the UAE, I might come across as quite direct because it's a relative scale, not an absolute scale. So look at this box here. Mexico, India, China, Ghana, again, Philippines. Keep walking, keep going to the indirect side. They're even off the chart. UAE, we don't like having conflict in front of people. We like, if we don't like something, we just won't say anything and we won't do business with that person ever again. Again, the Japanese are very much indirect. They don't like confrontation. That is why if you ask a Japanese person if they're hungry, even if they are hungry, they won't find the courage to actually say, actually, I'm hungry. So it's really interesting here. So again, the European cultures can come across quite rude to the Middle East cultures, but also the Far East and the Middle East. Sometimes they won't always say what's on their mind, and that could also be frustrating when dealing with direct negative feedback cultures. Okay? Farah has mentioned we will highlight the positive and then lead to negative. Absolutely. So I'll give you an example. I used to work with a Filipina. She's amazing. Gratz. She's one of my dearest friends. And sometimes I would do a training session just for feedback. And every time at the end of the session, I'll say, Gratz, what did you think of that? And Gratz was like, it was amazing. I loved it. I then did the same session for someone from Bulgaria who is kind of around Italy, Australia, Spain on the culture map. And I said, what did you think of the session? She goes, a little bit boring. So you can see the differences straight away. And Farah, that's a really, really good example that you've given there. So now we've covered communication. We've now covered feedback. We're going to go on to number 3, one of my personal favorites, power, respect. So we're going to talk about hierarchical cultures versus egalitarian cultures. Okay? So I'll give you an example. If you are from the UAE, you're more used to a hierarchical culture. Whereas if you're from Europe, we're used to an egalitarian. Now, you won't know what they mean yet, but I will explain them to you. Before I explain them, I'm going to introduce you to my friend Vanessa. So Vanessa was one of the best marketing managers we ever had at BMW. She's originally from Australia. When you see her, she's very unassuming. She dresses very casually. She doesn't wear suits. You do not address her by ma'am or Mrs. She likes to call everyone by their first name. She was very, very relaxed in the office, but she got amazing results in the UK. So originally from Australia, like I said. She was promoted 4 times in 5 years. The 5th promotion was the opportunity to go to Manila and work with the team in the Philippines for BMW there. She was so excited about it. I said, this is an amazing opportunity. So she left and she went to Manila. After 3 months, she called me. She was crying hysterically. She says, I don't want to be here. I want to come home. I want to come home straight away. I said, what is wrong, Vanessa? She goes, I can't work with these groups of people. I said, what's wrong? She says, they keep calling me ma'am. They don't invite me for lunch. They want me to sit in an office which is isolated overlooking the river. It's so lonely. Nobody's speaking to me. I said, look, this could be a cultural difference. Why don't you do yourself a favor? Do an anonymous survey for the staff members, not from you, but from HR, to see what they think of you as a leader. So she did that. The answers were astonishing. The team actually said about Vanessa, she doesn't take initiative. She doesn't make decisions. She wants to listen in to our talk during lunch. She invites herself to sit with us. She doesn't want to sit in her office. We feel that we have no direction. This is the first time Vanessa ever experienced a difference in culture. And let me explain the problem she faced. Look at the culture map here for power. If you are from an eagle, if you're from the red box here, Australia, Netherlands, Sweden, Denmark, Israel, Canada, Finland, they are an egalitarian culture, which means there's no hierarchy of power. Everyone is equal. Managers sit with the subordinates. Everybody sits on one floor. Everybody shares an office. People are expected to challenge the leaders. UK and US are also kind of in that cluster. But have a look here. Hierarchical. Saudi Arabia, Russia, China, Japan, Korea, Nigeria, again, Philippines, off the scale. They are so hierarchical. And the reason is this, based on the teachings of the cultures. So where you see the egalitarian culture, a lot of the influence came from the Vikings, where the Vikings didn't have hierarchy, okay? Whereas the more far east you go, the teachings change, and a lot of the Eastern philosophy has affected both the Middle East and the Far East. So Confucius teaching, where there is a teacher and student, is very, very dominant in hierarchical cultures. That's why Indians and Filipinos make excellent students, because they never challenge the teacher. The teacher is king, the student is there to listen. And actually, that's how power is disseminated as well. So it's very common when you work in for an organization that's based in the UAE, it's very common for that organization to have a grading system. Grade 8, grade 9, grade 10. I know from my experience in Emirates, where the higher the grade, the higher the rank, the better the parking space, the better the office. Whereas an egalitarian system where I came from a very flat structure, so it took a long time for me to actually get used to. Now, this is the problem with Vanessa, because Vanessa was from Australia, she's egalitarian, and she's working with a culture that's hierarchical. So you will find that in a hierarchical system, we don't have a lot of empowerment to make decisions. We have to get authorization from the manager. Whereas egalitarian cultures, you're empowered to make the decisions. There's no right or wrong, guys. In fact, hierarchical cultures work extremely well. The US Marine Corps are actually a hierarchical system. Let me explain one problem with a hierarchical system, though, is when the leaders are not accountable and they do not lead by example, the system fails. And then you start looking at the leaders thinking, why have they got a grade 10 position? So a leader must lead by example for a hierarchical system to work. So that is the difference in power. Now I'm going to give you the final one before we bring this to a close. Trust. I'm going to talk to you about high task versus high relationship cultures. Okay. From Europe, we're high task. From the Middle East and the Far East, you're high relationship. Let me explain with a funny story. I don't know if any of you have been to England or the UK, but one thing Brits pride themselves on is the queuing system when you are waiting in line. So if you're from the UK or Germany and you are at Carrefour waiting to pay for your groceries, let me tell you something. The Brits, they like to queue. They like to wait in line. One straight line and everyone is happy. Don't ever push in front of the line. Now, when I came over to Dubai, I'm now mixing with Indians, Chinese, Nigerian cultures, fresh from the culture, fresh from their culture. And now when I'm waiting in Carrefour, I have someone who's in front of me. I go and I stand in position 2. Now something strange happens. A man from India comes and stands to the left of me. And I'm thinking, what are you doing, man? You're trying to push in front of me. Then somebody from the Middle East comes and stands to the right of me. I'm thinking, what's going on here? And then you get this crazy queuing system, which is an evergreen system. And you'll see that Europeans will get very, very frustrated because they think that you're trying to push in front of them in the queue, when really they're not. Because people from India, people from Middle East, they build relationships quickly. They're used to standing to the side. whereas people from Europe are high task. So we like to form a single file queuing system. And I didn't realize that until I came to the UAE, and it was so funny. Now, whenever I have someone stand next to me, I just laugh to myself because it's a cultural thing. When we get to the front, that person generally lets you go. So it's really interesting. Now, I will explain with a story before we finish. Mr. Shintaro originally was from Japan. Now, in Japan, they drive on the same side of the road as people from the UK. So, Mr. Shintaro wanted to buy 107 Series BMWs. So, we invited him to the office, 8:30 a.m. He arrived on time with his suit and briefcase. We bowed, we sat in the office, and I got straight to business. I told him how much discount we will give Mr. Shintaro. I told him we can actually get these cars over to Japan in the next month. And remember, the Japanese, they don't like confrontation. So when I asked him, would you like to move forward with the business? Mr. Shintaro looked at me, smiled, and said, "Hey," which in Japanese means yes. Now I thought, amazing. This is a great deal for the business. So Mr. Shintaro left, and I told him I will send over an invoice. I then went to my manager. I explained, Mr. Shintaro has done the deal. We can relax for the next month. We've hit our target for the whole year. What I didn't know is Mr. Shintaro, 2 days later, wrote to me on an email. And these were his words. I am paraphrasing, but 90% of the words. He said, "Danos-san, thank you so much for your hospitality. We have considered your offer and we regretfully decline." He said, "But what we would like to do is extend our invitation to come to Tokyo for us to show you how the Japanese like to display their hospitality." Now, I read this email and I thought, maybe we missed the trick here. We missed something. Maybe I was too businesslike. So I went to Wayne, who's also from the UK, and I said, "Mr. Shintaro is inviting us to Japan." And he said, "I'm not going. We've wasted so much of our time here. He doesn't want our business." He goes, "If you go, you can go." So I booked a flight. I emailed Mr. Shintaro and I said, "Mr. Shintaro, I will be there next week." Mr. Shintaro replied saying, "Dano-san, I cannot wait to show you Japanese hospitality. Please get to this restaurant at 8:30 p.m. Dress casual." I'm looking at this thinking, casual? 8:30 p.m.? What kind of business meeting is this? Anyway, I get to Tokyo. Guys, if you haven't been to Tokyo, please go. It's the most amazing, wonderful, wonderful city and country I've ever been to in my life. So during my time in Tokyo, I arrived at the restaurant at 8:30, and he is there with his whole sales team, 8 sales executives and me. And we're sitting on a round table. We're all sharing our food. We are laughing, we're joking, we're not talking about business once. I did not mention BMW once. He's asking me about my family. I'm asking him about his. What football team does he support? I remember we used to have a Japanese football player. I'm an Arsenal fan, by the way. We used to have a Japanese football player called Junichi Inamoto, and he loved this player. So we got on like friends. We were drinking, we were eating, and at the end of the night, it was about 1 a.m. We left the restaurant. He turns to me and he said, "Dano-san, BMW deal." And I was astonished. I said to him, "What price?" He said, "The price that you offered me, it will be dishonor for me to ask for more." And I said to him, "What changed?" He said, "In this part of the world, we get to know the human before the product. If we like the human, we do business with them." And to this day, he still remains one of BMW, his most important customers to date. So this was a great learning experience for me, because where I'm from in the UK, as you can see in the red box, we're task-based. We talk business first, then we talk about relationships second. In the Middle East, and you can see the UAE flag, you're so far on relationship. You guys like to have the shisha, the coffee, you like to do the restaurants first. In China and Japan, exactly the same. We build the relationship first. This is why we use the word wasta a lot. It's the relationship, because you're such a high relationship culture, and this is very important. So a lot of the times when UAE do business with British people, you might see them and think, oh, they're a little bit stiff. You know, they're very low reactors. Whereas when we do business with relationship cultures, it takes a long time to build relationship. And this is the main difference. This was the best learning experience I had from leaving the UK, coming to Dubai. So I really hope you found that really interesting. And I'll leave you with this thought. If you ever work with a group of Lebanese, Egyptians, Indians, whenever you walk past them in the pantry and they're eating, the first thing they will do is they will grab your arm and they will say, "Sit with us and eat." It's very strange for an English person to have that mentality because we're high task. When an English person eats their lunch, they have their sandwich in their own plastic. They don't share their food. I think of Joey from Friends. I don't share food. And this is so true. We're not used to the mezeh. We're not used to the sharing concept of eating. And that's because we're a high task culture. So to finish, understand your cultural lens. There's no right or wrong culture. Be curious. Ask lots of questions. Eliminate unconscious biases. So, in other words, not everybody acts and behaves the same based on your old experience. And also, I find it very useful to speak from our own lens. So, whenever we have a difference of opinion or difference in culture, I always find it useful to speak from my lens. For example, I say, as a British male growing up in the 80s, this is my experience. What's your experience and how is that different? And then we can really begin to understand each other's culture. Cultural awareness and cultural understanding is key for organizations to be more profitable, to have higher employee engagement, and to be more motivated at work. So once again, on behalf of TDRA, we would like to thank you for joining us today. And I'd like to open the floor for any questions you may have. Over to you. I'm just looking at the chat. If there are any questions, feel free to ask any questions that you may have. Okay. So Nadine's written a question. What experiences have you had with cultures outside of your own that made you realize a difference in how they operate? So one experience I had, thank you for that great question, Nadine. One experience I had was when I first came to Dubai and I worked with Filipinos and Filipinas. I think they're indirect negative feedback. So they find it very difficult to be direct with you. And actually, I like to say it as it is. If I don't like something, I would just say it because I believe that saves a lot of time. However, the biggest learning curve for me was when I'm talking to Filipinos and Filipinas, I actually see that as a lack of courage, and that's not true. That is definitely not true. So I had the wrong impression because when from their side, from their culture, you never challenge anyone publicly because it's very, very disrespectful. And in the same token, in the Middle East as well. So I always know now that when I have a difference of opinion and it is with a indirect negative feedback culture like an Arabic culture or Filipino culture, we will do it one-to-one, and I'll always make sure that we do it in a separate space. Thank you for that question. Mohammed, how can we get in touch with you? I'm always open to anyone getting in touch with me. Nadine, if it's okay to share the email address, that will be absolutely fine. I'll put my email address in the chat. I can definitely share it with you. Just drop me an email. I'll be able to connect with you. Also connect with me on LinkedIn as well. So let me just write my email address here. There you go, my friend. Thank you, Mohammed, for that. Any other questions? You've been a great audience today, very attentive. What I need to do is please share your email address on this chat that you won the book. So Mohammed, Farah, and actually just drop me an email and I can send it directly to you. Also, what I'll do is I'll send it to the team at the academy. Any other questions? Feel free. I've got a crazy hair moment, guys. I do apologize. Guys, I will be here for the next couple of minutes answering any questions that may come along. But if there isn't any questions from you, I wish you all the best. Thank you so much for your undivided attention. It's been great having you on board. God bless. Stay safe.